Too long. I want to thank everyone so much for coming out here this afternoon to officially open the new Milner cairn. This structure was created to mark the original site of the Milner Church, a historically important building in one of Langley Township's most historically significant communities. Joining us here today are members of our Township Council. We have Councillor Bob Long, Councillor Charlie Falk, and Councillor, I'm sure David Davis is here someplace. And I didn't see, is there any other councillors here?
Mrs. Councillor.
Okay. And certainly bring greetings from all the rest of the Township councillors. We also have Murray Smith here, Hugh Davis, and Jane Watt. Jane Watt is chair of our Heritage Committee. And members of the Milner Community Association, which works so hard to restore the Milner Church. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's involved with preserving this historic landmark. This has become an icon not just for Milner, but for the entire township. And for all those involved in the creation of this cairn, so thank you very much. This really is a unique place, and we're pleased to see it commemorated in this way. I'd like to start off by calling Councillor Bob Long, as Council's representative on the Heritage Advisory Committee, to talk about Heritage Week, which we are currently celebrating.
Thank you, Mayor Froese. I have been asked to say a little bit about Heritage Week. It's great to be here, and we're right in the middle of Heritage Week. It's the third Monday of February that it's celebrated every year. It's a national day and a national week, I guess. We're calling it Heritage Week. The goal of Heritage Week is to celebrate our past through the recognition of our heritage buildings and our historic places, and that's why we're here in Milner. It was first established in 1973 by Heritage Canada Foundation, and Heritage Day is also celebrated across the country to encourage the preservation and promotion of Canada's architectural and natural heritage. So every year a different theme is picked, and this year it's Good Neighbors, Heritage Homes and Neighborhoods. So the importance of historic houses and neighborhoods to our communities is the township, and that's our theme here in the township. And we can certainly relate to that here. Historic buildings and areas provide a layered sense of community history and contribute to the visual appeal and variety that makes the communities unique and livable. And as the municipality of the Township of Langley is made up of so many distinct communities, it's easy for us to see these distinctive historic places, whether they're built or in natural form, contribute to our sense of neighborhood. So given the theme for Heritage Week this year, it's certainly appropriate to be recognizing the original site of the Milner Church, a long-time architectural icon for the Milner community, and a place that has contributed to the identity and cohesion of the Milner neighborhood for well over 100 years. So the contributions of this important site continue today as we come together to celebrate the importance of this place and the connections with early settlement in our community. Thank you.
Anyway, a little bit of the project history. In 1983, the church municipally was designated by the Township of Langley, and that's certainly a landmark point when the church became a very important piece of our infrastructure and history. In 2005, Council approved the church building's relocation to its current Milner Park site to ensure its long-term preservation. A lot of work was done on it in the 2005, 2006, 2000 timeframe. The original 1983 designation remained with this site, and bylaw 4450 amended the original bylaw by removing reference to the church specifically on the existing property and summarizing the heritage value of this particular site as being the original site for the 1886 church and location of the World War I commemorative maple, which is right behind me here. The bylaw amendment indicated that a cairn shall be erected to commemorate the specific location of the church. So in 2006, the church settled on new foundations in Milner Park, fronting 216th Street, and the renovations were begun. The residents, I think that was quite a momentous occasion, moving it from here over to there. And I know a lot of the Milner folk were here watching that actually happen and transitioning. In 2010, inquiries from the Milner community were apparent, and this was then discussed at the Heritage Advisory Committee, and they're recommended to be on the as a part of the 2011 work plan for the committee. In 2011, the approved for the 2000 Heritage Advisory Commission work plan, and the committee worked with staff in coming up with the design for the cairn. Budget was approved in 2012. In 2013, the final completion and completing touches were put on the cairn and the location surrounding it. And I think this particular cairn is one of the most iconic and just so perfectly designed for its location and its heritage value that staff has done. And so I'm really pleased today to be here to share this with the Milner community. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this modest church and the modest church behind us and the new cairn that commemorates it are part of the humble ingredients of our history. The human pathways and the structures that are big and small that lend meaning and beauty to Langley. Canadians often think that great historical events happen elsewhere, but history's not just about elsewhere, it's also about here. It's about people making homes, raising families, working to make their communities better and looking towards the future. So today we stand here in the rain, we're unable to see what we usually see, and that's this valley framed by views of Mount Baker and also Golden Ears. It's a view that Langley's forefathers and foremothers would have seen every day as they went about their work. But the importance of this particular place is more important than just the story of Langley. It was a First Nations corridor between the waters of the Fraser River and the Pacific Ocean. It was a managed landscape, likely centuries old. And long before the province of British Columbia was created, long before the country of Canada, it was the fertile farmland of the Hudson's Bay Company. And from the land that we literally stand on right now, came in the 1830s and 1840s cream, pork, and butter that bought a trading monopoly on the Pacific coast from Russia. So it was in this way that a few cows and some hardworking people on orders from London literally secured the land that would become the west coast of Canada. So it was from here that agricultural produce came. And a decade later, from the same soil of Milner came wheat and oats to feed settlers on Vancouver Island, as the new colony there faltered because it didn't have enough familiar food to feed new settlers. So it was in part for these reasons of public service to a larger ideal that part of this valley was given to the Hudson Bay for service after the Crown Colony of BC was created in 1858. And suddenly after that, things changed. In the 1870s and 1880s, newcomers came who saw potential and bought land. Norris, Davis, Smith, Muckford, Maxwell, others. They're not just street names. There's some here today, but families who farmed here and continue to farm here. People like all citizens who in the early days did road work in lieu of paying taxes, and they together built a community here. So in 1886, they built the Langley Prairie Methodist Church. Later it was called Milner Methodist, and later became a United Church. It was really a familiar and beloved building on this crossroads to different parts of Langley. So Willoughby up the hill, Fort Langley to the north, Langley Prairie to the south, and to the southeast, Murrayville. It was a place to celebrate together. It was a place to mourn. It was a place to hold community events, church services, weddings, funerals, dances. So this cairn here today is a reminder of a building, but it's also a tribute to the individuals and associations past and present who have been part of this community, who have contributed over the years to remind us of the historic importance of this place. It's also a tribute to people who worked hard in the present day to imagine and reimagine a better place for the church and a better use for this corner, as modern life put pressures on them both. So we thank you all.
Good afternoon. I got a lot of pages here, but I'll get over them fairly soon. Hello, I'm Hugh Davis. My family, along with the Muffords, the Smiths, the Worrells, and longtime pioneers in the Milner area. I was invited to speak today about the Milner Church because I think I am one of the oldest pioneers left. My grandfather, Henry Davis, came to Canada in the 1870s from Ireland. He was an orphan and was 11 when he arrived in Ontario. From the age of 11, he worked in a grist mill with John Oliver. I mentioned John Oliver because Henry and John soon became friends, and it was John who wrote a letter encouraging my grandfather to come to BC. John Oliver, for those of you who don't know, later became Delta's MLA and the Premier of our province. He was called Honest John Oliver. My grandfather eventually came to BC working on building roads and eventually ending up here in Milner. Why he chose Milner, we will never really know. But he did purchase 120 acres of land from the Reverend Dunn. Reverend Dunn had bought approximately 120 acres of land from the Hudson Bay Farm. The Hudson Bay Company had 22 lots for sale, all approximately 100 acres, and they were selling them for $24 an acre, which in those days was maybe too high. That was why they only sold 3 lots to begin with, 2 to the Norris family and 1 to Reverend Dunn. My grandfather had many my grandfather had written an agreement to clear the land and come up with the money to purchase the farm off Reverend Dunn. Reverend Dunn didn't think it could be done, and my grandfather proved him wrong, and 5 generations later, we are still on the family farm. So now that my grandfather had a farm, he needed a wife. When he asked my grandmother to marry him, her family would not let her come out from back east unless there was a church. Well, times were hard and there was no women in Milner, let alone a church. So Henry rode around on horseback with several other pioneer families. They rode as far as Matsqui and all the way to Mud Bay, collecting a little over $110 to build Milner Church. It took, if you look in the hall today, you can see a picture of my grandfather on the horseback in front of the church. Over the years, the Milner Church has been a place for community to gather. I can remember as a boy spending many hours in the Sunday school, the minister having to stop his sermon and wait for the train to go by. But church could never really begin until the 6 Mufford brothers were seated in the front row. As you walked into the church, you knew they had arrived, as their 6 bowler hats hung on the hooks in the hall. I can remember the Sunday school picnics and how we would all gather at the church, then go across the road to the train, and we went by train to Stanley Park. But then the trip would only take one hour. I remember the public dances, the community fairs, walking behind the hall with my calf projects. There have been many weddings and christenings and funerals. My brother brothers and sisters and I were christened in the church, and my daughter was even married here. Milner at one time was bigger than Langley. We had a train station, a telephone office, a butcher's shop, a bank, a blacksmith shop, a livery stable. A livery stable, which some of you wouldn't know, was where you rented horses for transportation. Milner, of course, has changed over the years as the township. One of the oldest buildings left still here in Milner today would be the barn across the Mufford barn across the road, and of course the Milner Church. Oh. I'm not a professional. Yeah.
You're doing better than your son.
Over the years, we have modernized it, but two new roofs on it, built the hall that sits behind me, painted it and behind it, and painted it and repainted it, and then eventually moved it with the help of the township, provincial government, the Milner Community Association, with May Smith and with May Smith and Ellen Merle and the families to its new location. That sure was a sight. I wonder what my grandfather Henry would have thought. 4 o'clock in the morning, the church was being jacked up and being driven down the road to the new home. The Milner Church is and always will be a part of our community, holding special meaning to the pioneer families represented here today. Thank you.
I'm Murray Smith, President of the Milner Community Association. The Milner Community Association is a charity that owns and operates the Milner Chapel. On behalf of that Milner Community Association, I want to thank the Township of Langley for their huge support through our building move and restoration. Our beautiful chapel is hosting around 60 weddings a year and many other functions. I want to make sure you please all take a tour this afternoon after our ribbon cutting and opening here. Being located adjoining the Milner Park has been a great success for our chapel. As you can see here with the roads, we really got sort of into a tight spot. The Milner Community Association is very pleased with this monument on our original church site, and we'd like to thank the Mayor and Council of the Township of Langley, the Parks Department. I know we had Milner Community Association's member Ellen Whirl. I'd like her to put her hand up. She's here. She was really involved with our cairn here and everything, so we want to thank her. And of course the Township Heritage Department. Tighten this up here. Wait, let's take it up. Maybe they'll stay there. Okay, yeah, so and also I said Township Heritage Advisory Department, the residents of the Township of Langley. So I just like to give everybody an applause that's been involved with this, so we're going to do that. Thank you very much. So in closing, I just wanted to say I'm very proud to be part of the Milner Chapel success. It's great to know that the Milner Chapel will always be a beautiful heritage asset to our community. So I want to thank you all and make sure you come over to the chapel between 1:30 and 3 today. Thanks a lot.